My name is Patricia, and I am 48 years old. I live with my husband and mother-in-law in a well-connected suburb near the train station, offering excellent access to the city center. When we were house hunting, Ethan, who had just been promoted to a managerial position, insisted on a spacious apartment despite the high rent. The extra space seemed worth the cost. Ethan, 6 years my senior and a divorcee, was introduced to me by a friend. His mature, comforting presence was something I had quickly come to rely on. We decided to get married after 3 years of dating. Even when I shared with him my infertility due to past illness, his affection never faltered. My feelings for him remained strong, even after I learned about his previous marriage and his son Willie, whom he had from that relationship. "I'm truly sorry to ask you to live with my parents and son," Ethan had said. "I promise I won't let you suffer. I'll make sure you're happy. Give me space and prevent me from feeling suffocated." He suggested moving to this large apartment where I could have my room. Willie, who was turning 9 that year, would not need much care, especially with his grandmother around to help. After his divorce, Ethan's parents helped with child care until his father tragically passed away in an accident, leaving his mother to take over as Willie's caretaker. From our very first meeting, Willie had barely made eye contact with me. Initially, I attributed Will's reserved demeanor to his age and possible shyness, so I didn't let it bother me too much. As long as the family accepted me, I felt content to be a part of their household. My mother-in-law, a woman of quiet elegance, had shown me such politeness during my formal introduction post-engagement that I believed we could coexist peacefully. She had set clear expectations from the start. I'll continue to prepare the meals as usual. Ethan often comes home late, so it's okay if we eat at different times, right, Patricia? I'll leave the cleaning and laundry to you. Let's work well together, she had said. After marrying, I shifted from full-time to part-time at the pharmacy to manage the household chores more effectively. My new schedule meant I wouldn't get home until nearly 9:05 p.m., but dinner was always ready, a small comfort in my solo dining routine. My mother-in-law and Willie usually ate before I arrived, reinforcing a sense of isolation even within my married life. Initially, I wondered if this was all there was to family life, but gradually I accepted this as just our way. Despite our seemingly smooth start, it became clear that my mother-in-law never truly liked me or considered me a part of the family. Trying to build a relationship with Willie, I asked about his school activities. "Willie, the school's activity day is before summer, right? When is it? We're all going to see you, aren't we?" Before he could answer, my mother-in-law quickly intervened. "We'll go there, just Ethan and me, Patricia. You don't need to worry about it." Misunderstanding her intention as considerate, I persisted. "I can get the day off work. Let's all go together." But she dismissed me sharply. "You don't need that. You're Ethan's wife, and Nix's family has always been just Ethan and me." Her words stunned me. That night I expressed my shock to Ethan, who explained, "Mom's been clinging to Willie. She probably thinks you're trying to take him away. I'll talk to her." Over time, I managed to join them at the activity day, attempting to integrate as a mother figure, but Willie and I rarely interacted outside of these school events. Sometimes I sensed he wanted to open up, but my mother-in-law invariably interjected, blocking progress. I later discovered she had been tarnishing my image to Willie, suggesting I'd be happier if he weren't in the picture. This revelation deeply hurt me, highlighting the complexities and challenges of blending into a family with pre-existing bonds and hidden resentments. The accusations were harsh. "She's a terrible person. Dad must be deceived by her too." Hearing such negative things from my mother-in-law must have influenced Willie during his impressionable teenage years. It was no wonder he grew distant from me. The situation was disheartening, and until then, I had never imagined she could be so manipulative. By the time Willie graduated from high school, he was eager to leave. He moved in with his girlfriend immediately and departed for college. Soon after, within a year of starting his career, he married her quietly and simply, without any formal ceremony. Once Willie was gone, my mother-in-law's behavior took a turn for the worse. Surprisingly, she ceased all housework, which had been a regular part of her daily routine. It seemed as though her new pastime was to find fault with me. She stopped cooking, something she previously took pride in, and would sit at the dining table waiting for me to return from work. The moment I stepped into the kitchen to prepare our meal, the criticisms began. "You're inefficient. At this rate, it'll take you all night," she'd scoff. Admittedly, I was never skilled at cooking, mainly because I had relied on her for meals. Whenever I did manage to cook, she critiqued every dish relentlessly. "This tastes awful," she would say as she grimaced. "I'm sorry, I'm trying my best," I would respond, only to hear her retort, "You're astonishingly tone-deaf when it comes to flavors, Patty. It's a good thing Willie never had to eat this." If she disliked it so much, I thought she might as well cook herself, but it seemed her goal was merely to berate me. Her complaints weren't limited to my cooking. She began to nitpick everything I did, from the chores I wasn't accustomed to handling, like cleaning, to the laundry. "Why are there so many wrinkles on the laundry? You have to vacuum every nook and cranny. You really can't do anything right. Didn't your family teach you anything?" These jabs at my upbringing were especially painful. She would sigh, looking at me disdainfully, and say, "I don't know how you won over Ethan, but I can't see much charm in you as a woman." And she always concluded with the same hurtful line, "If you hadn't come along, Willie would have never left." I realized that her heart was aching from Willie's absence, perhaps a case of emptiness syndrome. I told myself that if venting her frustrations on me helped her cope, I should just bear it. But her antagonism intensified after a particular event, the announcement of Willie's wife Teresa being pregnant. The joy she showed was unlike anything I had seen before. "It's Will's baby. It's bound to be adorable. He'll be my first grandchild," she exclaimed with genuine happiness. Watching their elation, I found a small piece of joy for myself, too. Despite the ongoing challenges at home, the excitement of my mother-in-law over the impending arrival of her great-grandchild was nothing short of overwhelming. The catalyst for her exuberance came when Willie inquired if his wife Teresa could have their baby at our place. Given her family was an hour away by plane and they lacked local support, my mother-in-law, thrilled to be asked, immediately agreed to help. Unable to contain her joy at being needed, her preparations began almost immediately. Calls from Willie became a daily occurrence, each one sending her excitement soaring even higher. She dove into tasks with fervor, clearing out Willie's old room, organizing the space for the baby, and meticulously planning everything from the nursery decor to the baby supplies needed. She enlisted my help the moment I got home from work. "Patricia, I've taken care of the vacuuming in Willie's room. Could you handle wiping down the floors and the windows and make sure to wax them too?" she instructed with an air of urgency. "This weekend we're off to buy a crib," she added, as if it was the most natural plan for our weekend juggling these tasks. Late into the night after my shifts was grueling. Any attempt to shortcut the process was met with a stern command to start over. It wasn't long before her requests extended to finances. "Patricia, I need you to withdraw some money tomorrow. There are a few more things I want to pick up for the baby," she declared one morning. I hesitated, concerned by the rapid pace of spending. Shouldn't we wait for Teresa and Willie to arrive before we buy so much? Maybe Teresa would like to choose some things herself, I suggested, hoping to inject some practicality into the frenzy. Her response was sharp and dismissive. "How can you be so detached? It's Ethan's grandchild after all." "Oh, but of course you're not related by blood. You wouldn't understand, would you?" she retorted, her words laced with accusation. I tried to clarify my position gently. It's not that I don't care. I just thought it might be nice for Teresa to have a say in her own child's preparations, I explained. My attempt to reason with her seemed to hit a nerve, and she looked at me with a piercing glare. Realizing I may have crossed a line, I watched helplessly as she turned and retreated to her room, deeply upset. I spent that night reflecting on the harsh exchange, feeling the weight of her words. The following morning, she stayed in her room, likely still angry about our conversation. Ethan was about to leave on a business trip and paused at her door to make a final remark. "I'm heading out. Don't dampen Mom's enthusiasm about the grandchild. She's been different since Willie moved out. You've noticed it too, right?" I nodded but added, "However, if we use up all our funds now, what will we do when Willie and Teresa need our help?" Ethan frowned, misunderstanding my concern. "Are you suggesting I don't make enough money?" "That's not it at all," I quickly assured him, but it was too late. He left visibly upset, and I was left alone to ponder the delicate balance of family dynamics and financial responsibility. As the one managing our household finances for over 12 years, I considered it prudent to think ahead. Ethan had always reassured me that my part-time income was for my use, so I diligently saved whatever I didn't spend, viewing it as a shared resource for our future needs. The financial stability of our household had been deteriorating steadily over the past 4 years. Ethan's salary had shrunk to 2/3 of what it was when we first got married due to his company's declining performance. Despite the uncertainty about the company's future and his job security until retirement, Ethan was reluctant to look for a new job. He was unwilling to relinquish his role as a department head, mostly to maintain appearances in front of my mother-in-law. As a result, I took on the responsibility of paying our rent while Ethan managed the other living expenses. We kept this arrangement hidden from my mother-in-law to preserve Ethan's dignity. One day, feeling the weight of recent tensions, I decided to leave work early to apologize to my mother-in-law. When I arrived home, she was already seated at the dining table, waiting. "I'm sorry about yesterday. I may have been too harsh," I began, but she cut me off with her icy demeanor, delivering startling news. "Willie and Teresa are coming back to have their baby here. I need you to move out," she stated bluntly. Stunned, I barely managed to ask, "I have to leave." She confirmed, "Yes, we don't need another mother figure. You've been redundant for a while now. Willie and his family will be living here. Make sure you're out by tomorrow." Her words hit me like a truck. I had never felt fully accepted by the family, always the outsider. Now, with Willie's return for the birth, it was clear. "You're a failure," she continued mercilessly. "You were allowed to experience raising a child. Be grateful for that. We have no obligation to support you anymore. It seems Ethan is tired of you, too. Maybe he's getting along well with a new girlfriend by now." Shocked and heartbroken, I grabbed my bag and left the house, wandering to calm my shaken spirit. I tried calling Ethan. Despite my mother-in-law's insinuations, he didn't answer, no matter how many times I dialed. I even called his office, only to find out he had taken a few days off. The suspicions seeded by my mother-in-law started to seem more plausible. Overwhelmed with emotion and tears streaming down my face, I found myself in front of the pub near the station. It was a place Ethan and I used to frequent when we first moved here. It still stood, a relic of happier times. As I entered, the pub owner's face clouded with concern before he recognized me. "Hey, long time no see," I remarked, trying to muster a smile amidst my distress. "Yes, it's been a while." "I remember you," he replied, offering a nod of recognition that brought a brief sense of relief. "Can I get a beer and a mixed plate of charbroiled chicken?" I asked, seeking a small comfort in this familiar place, a refuge from the storm swirling through my life. As I sat at the familiar pub, I engaged in light conversation with the owner, a man of few words. Sipping my cold beer and savoring the charbroiled chicken, I pulled out my cell phone. The screen lit up, displaying a photo of Ethan and me taken on Willie's 17th birthday. He looked dashing in the slim suit we had chosen together, and I remembered wishing for a closer family bond. The beer seemed to wash down the day's troubles, and as I contemplated my next steps, I browsed for moving companies, finding one available for the next day. I also bookmarked a couple of junk removal services, saving their contacts in my favorites. Changing the screensaver on my phone to something less personal, I felt a sense of mental clarity returning. The meal tasted exceptionally good, perhaps a small comfort amid the chaos. Deciding to give the situation more thought once I was back home, I walked away from the pub. A young waitress hurried towards me. "Excuse me, are you Mrs. Patricia?" she asked, noting the screensaver before I had changed it. Confirming my identity, she hesitated before dropping a bombshell. She believed my husband was having an affair with one of their employees. We exchanged contact details, and she promised to keep me updated. The pieces began to fit together, validating the harsh words of my mother-in-law. Instead of feeling sad, a fierce anger surged within me. It was time to confront this head-on. That evening, I contacted the moving company and resolved to leave the next day. If there was no conspiracy and my mother-in-law and Willie were indeed plotting against me, I no longer felt obliged to maintain appearances, I thought. I packed my belongings relentlessly until midnight. The movers arrived promptly the next morning, and I instructed them to take everything I had purchased, intending to erase any trace of my presence. My mother-in-law was taken aback by my resolve. "I'm taking everything I bought. You can start fresh tomorrow," I declared, barely suppressing a laugh. Despite her protests, the movers efficiently cleared out my items, leaving behind only the baby gear and her old dresser, things from before my time. "Well then, I bid you farewell. There should be no trace of me left, so enjoy your new life with Ethan, Willie, and his family," I said coolly, leaving her stunned. Placing the keys on the table, I exited the house, the movers following with my belongings. I decided to stay with a colleague temporarily, feeling a sense of completion and relief. That night, I slept more soundly than I had in months. 2 weeks later, Ethan finally reached out, his voice tinged with confusion and urgency. "Patricia, where are you? Willie and his family are here. Aren't you coming home soon?" "No, I'm not coming back," I responded firmly, recalling his mother's command for me to leave. Meanwhile, the young waitress from the pub had followed through on her promise, sending me a photo of Ethan chatting intimately with another woman at the pub and later entering a hotel with her. This betrayal erased any remaining affection I had for him. Armed with evidence of the affair, I prepared to confront the situation fully, no longer bound by any illusions of my old life. Having had enough, I didn't hesitate to make it clear to Ethan over the phone. "Willie and his family are moving in with you, right?" I asked, my tone firm. "I figured as much. I heard they've been struggling financially, going between part-time jobs since Willie graduated from vocational school," I added, sensing his hesitation. "No, I want you back, Patricia," Ethan replied, his voice edged with desperation. "I went to the pharmacy and they said you're taking some time off." "Yeah, I needed a break," I said nonchalantly, "but I'm fine, so don't worry about me. Your mom and Willie probably prefer having the house to themselves without me around." My blunt remark left Ethan speechless. He knew all too well that his mother and Willie had never accepted me, but he chose to ignore it. "All right, I need to talk, so I'll come back there," he said, a plea evident in his tone. A few days later, I returned to the house for the first time since leaving. Inside, I noticed new furniture and appliances. Willie and Teresa barely acknowledged my presence, merely nodding from their seats on the sofa without standing. As I sat down, my mother-in-law glared at me with a mix of shock and disdain. The atmosphere was thick with tension. Before I could rush my visit and leave, Willie confronted me. "What are you doing here? You took everything from the house. What kind of monster does that? Dad's been supporting you and you've had it easy," he accused. I exhaled, deeply frustrated. "I took everything because I paid for it. I was clearing out all traces of myself, just as you all wanted, right?" I countered. "That's crazy. There's no way you could afford all that just working part-time at the pharmacy." Ethan chimed in, turning to face him. I replied firmly, "We've been getting by on what both Ethan and I earn, and for your information, Ethan's company hasn't been doing well. His salary has dropped significantly, and for the past 4 years, I've been the one covering the shortfall. I've been paying our rent." My mother-in-law's face registered shock as she turned to look at Ethan, who awkwardly avoided her gaze. "I'm not just a part-timer. I'm a druggist, and the pay is quite good. I make more than Ethan now." The room went silent, the tension palpable. Turning to Willie, I decided it was time for some truths. "Since you're going to live here now, it's time for you to start taking responsibility. You'll be paying the rent to help your grandmother." Willie's face contorted in surprise. "Rent? How much is it?" "It's $7,200, I said firmly. "Good luck. Since it seems my role here is over, I have no obligation to take care of you anymore. You're going to be a father soon, Willie. It's time to pull yourself together." Teresa, overgearing the conversation, suddenly spoke up, her voice tinged with panic. "Wait, $7,200? Weren't we supposed to live here for free?" I stood up, ready to leave, satisfied that I had made my point clear. Covering rent and living expenses is part of life. Good luck figuring it out. As I walked out, leaving them to absorb the new reality, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. The chapter of my life dominated by neglect and ungratefulness was finally closed. I almost burst out laughing at the absurdity of the situation, but managed to keep my composure. "Don't worry, Teresa. There are cheaper places available. Ethan still makes a decent salary after all," I remarked, watching her face relax slightly. Then, with a heavy dose of sarcasm, I added, "Oh, and since I'll be leaving, life might still get tough for you, Ethan, especially with your mistress, huh?" At that, Teresa's composure broke, and she dissolved into tears. My husband looked panicked. "What are you talking about?" he stammered. Teresa, through her tears, responded, "Oh, your mother told me about the new woman. I guess it's time to end my role as a wife, too." Ethan was flustered. "My mother said what?" he sputtered, realizing too late that I knew far more than he wished I did. "It hasn't even been 6 days since I left the house, Ethan. Wouldn't that hurt Grace if she knew?" I mused aloud. At the mention of Grace's name, Ethan's face went pale, confirming my suspicions. "This isn't the right atmosphere to discuss divorce papers, but I'll be in touch about that later, through my lawyer," I declared, standing up to leave. Neither Ethan nor Willie could find the words to respond. They remained silent as I grabbed my bag. My mother-in-law, however, stood up abruptly, slamming her hands on the table and yelling with a vigor surprising for her age. "What the hell? It's all your fault. Our home is in shambles." I shot back without hesitation. "It was you who told me to leave, you who hinted at Ethan's affair, and you who interfered with my relationship with Willie. Everything was because of you." I felt a rush of anger. I regretted not being more assertive in my relationship with Willie and not standing up to her sooner. "Willie has nothing to do with this, Ethan. It's time for you to step up. You're going through a hard time. You should support him as his wife. Take responsibility as a family member," I admonished. "What is she even talking about?" My mother-in-law muttered, bewildered. If she hadn't called Willie back home, if she hadn't hinted at Ethan's affair, I would still be supporting Ethan in this home. "Where are you, Willie? Why are you still here?" "It's all her fault," my mother-in-law concluded, her lips pressed tightly together, trembling with emotion. I slipped past the silent mother-in-law and quickly left the room. Afterward, Ethan agreed to the divorce rather easily. It seemed my determination and the undeniable evidence of the affair gave him no other choice. Shortly after, it seemed they began the process of moving out of the apartment. In the end, Willie and Teresa returned to their apartment, choosing not to live with the mother-in-law. Ethan appears to be considering remarriage, but Grace is furious over the alimony and his request for her to live with his mother. I've heard they're now considering what steps to take next. After everything that transpired, my mother-in-law ended up in a care facility. It's somewhat melancholy to reflect on the irony of her situation. After all the dedication she poured into raising her son and caring for her grandson, it seems they are now ready to move on without her. Perhaps in their eyes, she had fulfilled her role. If my mother-in-law had held her tongue back then, and if it had merely been a simple return home for childbirth, perhaps we could have continued living together even after the divorce. But things unfolded differently. Willie sent me an apology letter recently. In it, he expressed his childhood longing for more affection and explained that he couldn't talk to me freely because his grandmother disapproved. He also shared how pleased he was whenever I attended his school events. Reading his words, I wondered if maybe I should have made more effort to connect with him. Maybe then our relationship could have taken a different path. Despite the end of our familial ties, I find myself silently hoping for Willie's happiness in life. As for me, I've returned to my job as a druggist and rented an apartment close to my workplace. I didn't feel right keeping the furniture and appliances I had taken from the house, so I arranged for a junk removal service to take them away. Life without the constant criticism and interference of my mother-in-law has turned out to be peaceful and comfortable. For now, I am focused on living for my happiness, no longer beholden to fulfilling someone else's expectations or desires. It's a new chapter, one where I can finally breathe freely and look forward to what comes next.
Marcus barely looked up from his phone as he spoke. Let's keep it simple. No lawyers, no splitting assets. You move out, and I'll let you keep your car. His words hit hard, as if 15 years of marriage meant nothing. I gripped my coffee mug, trying to steady myself. And the house? I asked. You expect me to just walk away from the home I've spent years renovating? He finally met my eyes, looking annoyed. Look, Anna, Megan really loves this place. She already has plans to redecorate, and honestly, you're always out volunteering anyway. It just makes sense. Megan, his 24-year-old girlfriend from the gym. Of course she loved the house I had built and cared for. I took a slow sip of coffee, forcing myself to stay calm. When did you meet her? I asked, even though I already knew. Marcus shifted uncomfortably. That doesn't matter. What matters is that we've grown apart. You're busy with your projects, and Megan, she understands me. She's young, full of life. I held back a bitter laugh. At 42, I had never felt more alive. But Marcus had been too busy chasing his youth to notice. And when do you want this settled? I asked. By the end of the month. Megan's lease is up, so it makes sense for her to move in then. You can stay with your sister while you look for an apartment. He spoke as if he was planning a weekend trip, not tearing my life apart. I stood and walked to the window, looking at the garden I had worked so hard on. And if I said no? Marcus sighed. Come on, Anna. Don't make this hard. You know I can afford better lawyers. Let's keep this civil. I turned back to him with a small smile. You're right. We should keep this simple. His eyes narrowed. Really? You'll agree? Of course, I said softly. I'll start packing this weekend. Marcus seemed surprised by my calmness. He had expected tears, begging, maybe even a fight. Instead, he got quiet acceptance. It made him uneasy. Well, good, he said, standing up. I'll be at Megan's until you're out. Just leave your keys on the counter. As he walked to the door, I called out, Marcus. He stopped. How long have you been planning this? He hesitated. A few months. I wanted to be sure before saying anything. I nodded. That's funny. I've been planning too. He frowned. Planning what? You'll see, I said, turning back to my garden. I waited until the door shut before pulling out my phone and texting my lawyer. It's time. What Marcus didn't know was that I had seen this coming. The late nights at the gym, the sudden focus on his looks, it was obvious. But while he was busy with his new life, I was preparing for this moment. I walked through the house, running my fingers over the walls I had painted and the fixtures I had chosen. In the study, I opened my laptop and pulled up a folder labeled Garden Plans. Inside were no landscaping designs, only financial records, legal documents, and proof of everything I had contributed to this home. A message popped up from my sister. Did he do it? Are you okay? I replied, yes, just like we expected. Time for phase 2. Elena had been my rock, encouraging me to document everything when we first suspected Marcus was cheating. Now all the pieces were in place. By noon, I had made my calls to my lawyer, the private investigator, and a contractor who had helped document my work on the house. Standing in my kitchen, the kitchen I had paid for while Marcus claimed we had no money, I allowed myself a moment of anger. Then I took a deep breath, squared my shoulders, and got to work. Marcus wanted a simple divorce? He'd get one, just not the way he expected. He had underestimated me for too long. That was about to change. I sent one final text to a group chat I had created months ago. Operation House Guard is a go. Within seconds, replies flooded in. My sister, my lawyer, my closest friends, all ready to help. Marcus thought I was the same naive 25-year-old he had married. He was about to learn just how much I had changed. The next week played out exactly as I expected. Marcus showed up at the house while I was out, bringing Megan along to start planning her changes. What they didn't know was that my security cameras caught everything. Every insult about my tastes. Every smug comment about what they do. This garden is way too much, Megan said on the footage. We should turn it into a pool. That night, my sister Elena and I watched the recordings. She had moved in to help me pack. But in reality, she was documenting everything while I set my next move in motion. Did you see their faces when they walked into your art studio? Elena asked, pausing the video. They have no idea that room alone is worth more than Marcus makes in a year. I smirked, thinking of the custom skylights and ventilation system I'd installed. Marcus thinks I waste money on hobbies. He never even looked at the property assessments I've been collecting. Every upgrade I had made to the house over the last 5 years was carefully documented, paid for with my inheritance and work stipends. Money Marcus never noticed because he never cared. The next morning, I got a text from Marcus. Movers coming Thursday. Make sure your stuff is packed. I replied with a simple, knowing it would annoy him. He always hated when I used emojis instead of words. That afternoon, I met with my lawyer, Sandra. She spread out the documents we gathered, smiling. The house's value has gone up by 287% since you started renovations, she said, tapping the paperwork. And we have proof that you paid for every major improvement. Marcus hasn't contributed a dime since 2019. I leaned in. And my separate accounts. Sandra nodded. All accounted for. The inheritance, consulting fees. Everything is legally yours. Marcus can't touch a penny. While he was busy chasing his midlife crisis, I had been building a case. Every bank transfer, every receipt, every investment, I had it all. What about his better lawyers? Sandra asked, amused. I slid my phone across the table, showing her the private investigator's report. He's drowning in credit card debt. Those fancy gym memberships, the designer suits, all on borrowed money. Thursday came. The movers arrived, ready to pack up the house. I met them in the driveway with a folder in hand. Mrs. Harrison, the lead mover, asked, "We're here to pack up the house." I smiled and handed him a document. Actually, there's a court order preventing the removal of anything until the divorce is settled. Feel free to check with your legal team. Within 20 minutes, the movers left and Marcus arrived, furious. "What the hell, Anna?" he shouted. "I thought we agreed to keep this simple." I stayed calm. "We did. I'm just protecting my property." "Your property?" he scoffed. "I'm the one who paid the mortgage." I raised an eyebrow. "Really? When was the last time you actually checked the mortgage statements?" His face turned red. I could see him struggling to remember when he last looked at our finances. For years, I handled everything while he focused on his career and later, his gym routine. This is ridiculous, he snapped. I'm calling my lawyer. Please do, I said. I'm sure they'll love reviewing the property assessments and renovation records my team put together. His anger faded into confusion. What team? What documentation? I smiled, the same calm smile I gave him when he first suggested our simple divorce. You know those volunteer committees you mocked? The Historic Preservation Group? The Neighborhood Board? Turns out they're really helpful when proving property values. He finally realized what I had done. For years, he ignored me, thinking I was just playing around with home projects. Now he saw the truth. I had built something real, something valuable, and I wasn't letting it go. Megan's waiting to move in, he said weakly. She might want to check the property records first, I replied. And maybe your financial situation too. I turned and walked inside, leaving Marcus standing in the driveway as his plan unraveled. Elena was waiting in the kitchen with a high five and a glass of wine. Think he'll finally check those mortgage papers. I sipped my wine, remembering when I refinanced the house 3 years ago, putting it in my name alone. Marcus had signed the papers without reading them. He'll figure it out soon enough, I said. Just like everything else he should have paid attention to. The truth hit Marcus like a tidal wave over the next few days. Every attempt to assert control over the situation revealed another layer of preparation he hadn't anticipated. When he tried to access our joint accounts, he discovered they'd been properly documented and separated months ago. When he sent his lawyer to threaten legal action, they were met with overwhelming evidence of my sole financial contribution to the property's value. The final blow came when Megan, who'd been eagerly planning her interior decorating schemes, learned the truth about Marcus's finances. I was in the garden, tending to my roses when Marcus's car screeched into the driveway. He looked disheveled, nothing like the confident man who'd announced his plans for our simple divorce just weeks ago. You planned this, he accused, storming up the garden path. You've been planning this for years. I carefully deadheaded a rose before responding. No, Marcus. I protected myself while you were busy destroying our marriage. There's a difference. Megan left, he admitted, slumping onto the garden bench. She saw the credit card statements, the mortgage documents, everything. Funny how quickly people leave when they discover the truth. I replied, thinking of all the times I'd asked him to review our finances together. All the attempts I'd made to involve him in household decisions. I can't believe you refinanced the house without telling me. I did tell you. 3 years ago. You were too busy with your new gym membership to read what you were signing. I turned to face him fully, just like you were too busy to notice where the money for all these renovations came from. He looked around the garden, really seeing it for the first time, the carefully planned landscapes, the professional hardscaping, the custom irrigation system. All improvements I'd made while he assumed I was just puttering around with plants. Your aunt's inheritance, he said slowly. The consulting work, you weren't just volunteering, were you? I was building something, Marcus. While you were trying to recapture your youth, I was investing in our future, or what I thought was our future. Elena appeared at the back door. Everything okay up here? I nodded, appreciating her protective instincts. She'd been my backbone through all of this, helping me stay focused on the long game instead of reacting emotionally to Marcus's betrayal. The divorce papers are ready, I told Marcus. The real ones, not your simple version. Sandra will email them to your lawyer today. And the house is mine. Legally, financially, and morally. You can collect your personal belongings once the agreement is signed. There's a detailed inventory of what's yours and what stays. He stood up, looking older and smaller than I'd ever seen him. I really messed up, didn't I? Yes, I said simply. You did. After he left, Elena brought out 2 glasses of wine. We sat in my garden, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of pink and gold. You know, Elena said, when you first told me your suspicions about Marcus, I wanted you to confront him immediately. But this was so much better. I smiled, thinking of all the quiet hours I'd spent preparing, protecting, and building while Marcus assumed I was oblivious. Sometimes the best revenge is simply being prepared. The divorce was finalized 3 months later. Marcus moved into a small apartment across town. His dreams of playing house with his younger girlfriend shattered by the reality of his financial situation. I kept everything I'd built, the house, the garden, the art studio, and most importantly, my dignity. The documentation I'd gathered left no room for arguments or prolonged legal battles. Megan, I heard, had moved on to someone else. Someone whose promises of luxury actually had substance behind them. I couldn't bring myself to feel sorry for either of them. 1 year later, I stood in my garden, which had just won the local historical society's preservation award. The irony wasn't lost on me. All those committees Marcus had mocked had actually been building my reputation as a restoration expert, making plans for the new greenhouse. Elena asked, joining you with our traditional glass of wine. Actually, I smiled. I'm thinking of starting a consultation business. There are a lot of old houses in this neighborhood that need someone who understands their value. As we toasted to new beginnings, I thought about how different things might have been if Marcus had just paid attention, if he'd seen me as a partner instead of a convenience. But then again, if he had, I might never have discovered just how capable I was on my own. The simple divorce he'd wanted had turned into a masterclass in preparation and patience. While he'd been planning his escape, I'd been quietly building my fortress. In the end, the house he'd so casually tried to take from me had become the symbol of my independence. Sometimes the best victories are the ones you plan for quietly, while others underestimate you. Marcus had wanted simple. He got simple, just not the kind of simple he'd expected. James left a note on the kitchen counter. I'm taking Amanda with me. No property division. Don't contact me. His handwriting was rushed, but I understood every word. My husband of 12 years was leaving me for his 23-year-old gym trainer, thinking he could just walk away from everything we built together. My name is Diana. I'm 35, and I never expected to start my day reading a goodbye note from my husband. But here I was, holding the end of my marriage in my hands. What James didn't know was that I saw this coming. The late nights at the gym, the new clothes, the locked phone. He wasn't as sneaky as he thought. Even more telling, his sudden interest in our properties. He started asking questions about deeds and ownership, things he never cared about before. I took a sip of my coffee, remembering my recent call with our family lawyer Marcus. Diana, if you think he's planning something, we need to act now. Marcus had been a trusted friend for years. I told him James believed everything was in his name, unaware that I kept records of every financial contribution I made before and during our marriage. James never liked dealing with paperwork. He loved bragging about our real estate, but I was the one who handled all the legal details. At the start of our marriage, he happily left that boring stuff to me while he focused on the big picture. That worked in my favor. My phone buzzed. A message from James. Amanda and I need the house this weekend to get my things. Be gone. I actually laughed. He really thought he was in control. I walked to my home office and opened the safe behind a family photo. Inside was a thick folder filled with documents I'd been collecting since the day I noticed Amanda getting too close to James at a barbecue. The truth? The house we lived in. Bought with my inheritance, solely in my name. The rental properties he loved to show off? 3 out of 4 were purchased with my own savings. Every dollar, every deed, every contract was documented. James used to roll his eyes at my habit of keeping records, but my father always said, always have proof of what's yours. Last month, I worked with Marcus to update all the paperwork, making sure everything was legally protected under my name. James had been too distracted with Amanda to notice the documents he signed without reading. Another message from James. Don't bother with a lawyer. Everything is in my name anyway. I smiled. He had no idea. I opened my laptop and checked the security feed for one of our rental properties. Sure enough, there was James walking inside with Amanda. He probably thought they had a fresh start in his building. Just then, the front door opened. Diana? Marcus had arrived right on time. He finally did it, he asked. I handed him the note. Just like you predicted, he thinks he owns everything. Marcus shook his head, flipping through the documents. He really has no clue you've been ahead of him this whole time, does he? I smirked. James never paid attention to details. Marcus nodded. All your properties are secure. He can try to fight it, but he won't win. My phone rang, James's name flashing angrily on the screen. I let it go to voicemail. He's going to be furious, Marcus warned. Let him be, I said, shutting my laptop. He wanted to leave without splitting anything. I just made sure he got exactly what he asked for. Text after text started pouring in from James. What the hell is this? These papers are fake. You can't do this to me. Answer your phone. I turned off my phone and looked at Marcus. What's next? He pulled out a timeline of our legal filings. His lawyer will call soon. Given the evidence we have, they'll probably push for a quick settlement. I nodded, feeling a mix of relief and satisfaction. This wasn't how I wanted my marriage to end, but I refused to walk away with nothing. Marcus flipped to another page. One more thing, remember that rental property James thinks is his. The one he and Amanda just walked into? I have the security company ready to change the locks. Just say the word. I thought about James and Amanda, sitting inside what they believed was their new home. I smiled. Do it. Marcus made the call. As I sat back in my chair, I felt calmer than I had in months. James had underestimated me for the last time. He thought he could take everything from me. He was about to learn the hard way. He never really had anything to begin with. The next morning, I woke up to 47 missed calls and over 60 messages from James. Each one was more desperate than the last. The final text caught my eye. This is ridiculous. I'm coming over now to sort this out. I calmly made my coffee, already knowing how this would go. Sure enough, minutes later, his car screeched into the driveway. The front door banged open. He still had his key, but that would change today. Diana? James shouted. What the hell is this? These papers can't be real. He stormed into the kitchen, his face red with anger, waving the legal documents. Amanda stood in the doorway, looking far less confident than she had before. I leaned against the counter, sipping my coffee. Good morning, James. Finally read the paperwork I handle. This is insane, he sputtered. You're saying the house is yours? The rental properties too. I built this portfolio. I set my mug down. Did you? Which part exactly? The house my inheritance paid for. The rentals I bought with my engineering salary while you were off networking. His face turned even redder. I made all the decisions. I chose the properties. I raised an eyebrow, pointing at buildings and saying I want that one isn't the same as owning them. You'd know that if you ever read what you signed. Amanda stepped forward. James says half of everything is his. We're going to fight this. I actually laughed. Are you? With what evidence? James, show Amanda the property deeds. The financial records. Oh wait, you can't. Because you never kept any. James's confidence was fading. The court will call this marital property. You can't just claim everything. I pulled out a folder. Actually, I can. Here's the proof. Every transaction, every contribution. I even highlighted your part. It's a very short section. James's hands shook as he flipped through the pages. Amanda looked over his shoulder, her expression changing as she realized the truth. By the way, I added, you'll need to move your things out of the rental property by tomorrow. The locks have been changed. Amanda's eyes widened. You can't kick us out. James said that property was his. I shrugged. James says a lot of things. The property deeds say otherwise. Feel free to check with the county records office. James dropped into a chair, the fight draining from him. This isn't fair, he muttered. My calm cracked just a little. Was it fair when you threw away our marriage? When you planned to leave me with nothing? Amanda shifted awkwardly. I should wait in the car. Yes, I said, you should. After she left, James looked at me, and for the first time, I saw fear in his eyes. What do you want? I want you to understand what you've lost, I said. While you were planning to leave me with nothing, I was making sure you got exactly what you deserved. I'll fight this, he said weakly. Go ahead, I shrugged. Marcus already prepared for that. He has records of your gym dates with Amanda. The money you spent on her from our joint account. We can bring all of that to court. James swallowed hard. You planned this all along. No, James, I protected myself when I realized you were planning to betray me. There's a difference. His phone buzzed. Probably Amanda. He stared at it before asking, what about my clothes, my stuff? You can collect your personal things tomorrow between 9 and 11 a.m. Marcus will be here to supervise. After that, the locks will be changed. Marcus, he scoffed. Should have known you'd run to him. Yes, you should have. And you should also know that if you try to take anything that isn't yours, it'll be considered theft. There are cameras now. James stood up, shoulders slumped. I never thought you'd be so calculating. And I never thought you'd try to take everything from me, I replied. Life is full of surprises. At the door, he paused. I did love you once, you know. I know, I said. But love without respect isn't enough. You might want to remember that with Amanda. As he left, I let out a long breath. Through the window, I saw him arguing with Amanda in the car. I felt nothing for either of them. My phone buzzed. A message from Marcus. How did it go? Exactly as expected, I replied. Shocked, then angry, then defeated. Just like you said. Good. From now on, let me handle everything. I looked around the kitchen, remembering all the good times James and I had shared here. But I refused to let his betrayal define my future. Tomorrow, I would start fresh, knowing that I had outsmarted the man who thought he could leave me with nothing. 6 months after James left that note on my kitchen counter, I sat in Marcus's office, looking at the final divorce papers. The numbers told a clear story, one James hadn't planned for. He's agreed to everything, Marcus said, sliding the papers across his desk. The properties are yours, and he's dropping any claims to joint assets. I signed, feeling lighter with each stroke of the pen. How's he handling it? Marcus smirked. Let's just say his new life with Amanda isn't as glamorous as he hoped. They're renting a tiny apartment across town. Turns out, personal training doesn't pay much. I expected to feel satisfied, but all I felt was peace. And the last rental property, the one he thought was his, Marcus checked his files. New tenants move in next week. The rent will go straight to your account. As I left Marcus's office, my phone buzzed. James had sent a message. I hope you're happy. You took everything. I started to reply but then deleted it. He still didn't get it. I hadn't taken everything. I just kept what was rightfully mine. His own choices had cost him everything else. At home, I walked through the house. It felt different now. I had redecorated, swapping out the dark furniture James loved for bright, modern pieces. His sports memorabilia was gone, replaced with local artwork I had collected. My phone rang. Lisa. Mom told me. Is it really over? Just signed the papers, I said. How do you feel? I thought for a moment before answering, like I can finally breathe again. Lisa laughed. You know, when you started documenting everything before James left, I thought you were being paranoid. But you saw it coming, didn't you? I saw the signs, I admitted. He suddenly cared about property deeds and bank statements. He thought he was being smart, but really he was just giving himself away. And Amanda? I chuckled. Last I heard, she's realizing that dating a man who abandoned his wife might not be the best decision. That evening, I poured a glass of wine and stepped onto the patio. The garden was blooming, a change I had made after James left. He liked a perfect lawn, but I had planted wildflowers and herbs instead. An email came in from the property management company. The rentals were doing well, and I didn't even have to worry about them. I had hired a team to handle it. A car door slammed next door. James and Amanda were visiting a friend across the street. They looked tired. No designer clothes, no expensive car. James glanced at my house, our old house, and saw me standing there. Our eyes met. I lifted my wine glass slightly, not to mock him, just to acknowledge the moment. He looked away and hurried inside. Later, as I got ready for bed, I found an old photo of us, back when we were happy. I put it in a box labeled past and shut the lid. A final text from Marcus appeared. Congrats. This isn't just an ending, it's a new beginning. He was right. James had tried to leave me with nothing, but instead, I had gained something even better, proof that I was stronger than he ever realized. The next morning, I woke up early, made coffee, and sat in my garden watching the sunrise. My divorce was final. My properties were secure. My future was mine to create. James had underestimated me. He thought I was weak. Instead, I had been 10 steps ahead the whole time. As I stood among the wildflowers, I smiled. The best response to betrayal isn't anger or revenge. It's proving them wrong and living better than they ever imagined.